Back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce, and we are at April 12th. Now, some of you are already saying to yourselves, he's going to talk about the B-52s, and that is not true. Although they are one of my favorite bands, and I will talk about them, I'm sure. We're not doing the B-52s today, but there's a reason why I'm wearing this shirt, because the band I am going to talk about are related to the B-52s. And some of you out there who are in the know might even know who I'm talking about. Anyway, today, April 12th, 1983, R.E.M. puts out their debut album, Murmur. We're going to talk about that album, obviously, but let's go back to R.E.M. in general. They're formed in 1980 in Athens, Georgia, which is where the B-52s are from. So they're formed in 1980. They actually put out their first single in 81, soon after opening up for the Police. I don't know how they got to open up for the Police, but they did, and they did so in Atlanta in 1980. So they get on this record label, Hibtone Records, which no one ever heard of and actually didn't really go anywhere. They put out their first single, Radio Free Europe. That leads to their signing with IRS Records. So let's talk about IRS Records. If any of you are in the know about labels and who's putting out what, IRS Records was very famous in the 1980s for kind of college rock, alternative rock. They had bands like The Alarm, The Bangles, Berlin, Concrete Blonde, The English Beat, that kind of thing. That record label, IRS Records, was founded by a guy named Miles Copeland III. His father, Miles Copeland Jr., was a CIA agent in the 1940s who was fairly famous, and he went on to retire and write a lot of books about such things. So Miles founded this record label, and he had two brothers. His other brother is named Ian. He was a promoter and owned his own talent agency, which was called Frontier Booking International, FBI. See where we're going with this? Then they had a third child. The third brother's name was Stuart. Who knows who Stuart Copeland is? Drummer for the Police. Full circle, right? So IRS Records signs REM, and they actually put out an EP called Chronic Town, which is one of my favorite records by any band of all time. You can see that. So that was a 5-song EP that was released in 1982, and it was very well received. The critics also loved that. It was the Village Voice's #2 EP of the year. For me personally, I first heard that when I was working as a dishwasher at the Summers Inn. I was in high school, and we had a college student chef there that went to Tufts, and he would play this cassette at the end of the night when we were breaking down, and it would just really just love this album. I bought it, and I just played it, and ever since then, I've been playing that record regularly. I still play it to this day. It's got these great songs on it. My favorites being Wolves, Lower, and Carnival of Sorts. If you've never heard these songs before by REM, you should check it out. It's signature REM, but it's just a really great record. So, after that EP comes out, they release Murmur in 1983. And Murmur is, again, the critics love it, well received, and I think it goes to number 36 in the charts. Now, on that record is Radio Free Europe, the single they had put out a couple of years earlier, but it's a different version than the one they originally released on Hibtone Records. So the one that we all know and love is the one that's from that album. But when they put out a greatest hits later on, eponymous, the version that they put of that song on there was the Hibtone Records one, because they liked that version better. I remember when I first heard that greatest hits, and I was thinking to myself, this sounds a lot different than the one that I'm used to. And as a matter of fact, when they got their new album to be put out, Murmur, the record label said they wanted them to re-record it because they figured they were a better band and they wanted to make that single again. the band agreed, they made it, and the version that's on there is actually a little bit slower tempo and some slightly different lyrics. And then years later, the band would say that they don't like that version, the one that was actually released, and that they prefer the Hibtone Records version by far. They say that it's just superior in all ways. So I went back and I listened to that Hibtone version again, just for this reason, and it's pretty good. I mean, I like the tempo better. It's a little faster, but the vocals, there's something about the vocals that, I don't know if it's an effect or something, but every time I hear it, I think of the Ramones. I can't figure out why I think of the Ramones, but it's almost like I want the vocals from the one from Murmur on to go with the music of the original. But anyway, that's the record we're going with. We're going with the debut Radio Free Europe. We're going to do the version we all know and love, and I'll put the Hibtone version underneath. Check it out, see what you think, and we'll see you on the flip side.